How are you this afternoon?
Afternoon. I'm doing well, guys. How about yourself?
Doing well. It's good to talk to you. Let's start with the current Vikings before we get into the draft and the position that you specialize in, Dan, which is the quarterback position. I don't know how much more there is to get out of Kirk Cousins than what we saw last year. Not to say that he was a world beater last year. I just think that maybe what you saw from him, it was good, and maybe the peak of what you can get out of a Kirk Cousins. Do you think there's more juice to squeeze out of that lemon, so to speak?
Yeah, you could certainly say that. I would actually say that you, last season's version of Kirk was maybe his best version. He conquered a lot of the demons that had been following him, or at least storylines that had followed him. And I remember at the beginning of the year when he was really struggling, and I would watch tape and I'd be like, man, he just looks like he has no confidence right now. And there was moments I remember watching the Chicago game on the road where he would just be in a really bad place in the pocket. And I'm talking about like his pocket would be really clean and he'd be leaving the pocket or skittish in it. And I had said, like, the Vikings might entertain bringing someone in here, maybe trade for a Josh Rosen or something, because this is a really good football team. And if Kirk doesn't get his confidence back, that's a big problem. And as the season went on, he had the big primetime win, and then he has the big comeback win, and he just started chipping away, and you could see him getting more confident and more confident. Obviously, the massive road win in the playoffs. And so I think that the fact that he conquered some of those things and maybe quieted the narrative around him is really good for him moving into the future. And, Kirk is still very much so in the prime of his career. And it'll be interesting to see, the comfort level with the new play caller and how they replace Stephon Diggs, obviously. But
Yeah.
there's more to Kirk, and I think you'll see him take more steps.
Dan, do you think that Kirk Cousins can win a Super Bowl? Because he can certainly put up good statistics, and I think he could probably win a division. But if you were sitting in Rick Spielman's chair, do you think that he can be the starting quarterback on a team that holds the Lombardi Trophy?
Yeah, the answer is yes. The way you phrase the question is the latter way is the correct way. I don't think Kirk Cousins is the reason you go win a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl, essentially. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was this massive difference maker. Do I believe that Kirk Cousins can quarterback a team that wins the Super Bowl? Yes. Now, he is like probably the group of 7th ranked quarterback to 15th ranked quarterback, where he is one of the needs the right play caller, needs the right people around him, needs to be in the correct scheme. There's that group of 7 to 15 who can't transcend that stuff, who cannot overcome that stuff. And so, yeah, with the right football team in the right moment, and you stay healthy and you get hot, yes, you can stay. I do believe that Kirk can quarterback a team that wins the Super Bowl, but he will not be the reason that they win the Super Bowl. He will be part of the journey.
Talking with Dan Orlovsky of ESPN here on Score North Live. You're the first person. I thought it was kind of a brilliant way of putting it and assessing the quarterback position to describe it as the art of playing the position and the science of playing the position. Would you say that Kirk Cousins, he's pretty good at the science of playing the quarterback position, but the art and the improvisation that makes the great one great, that's probably where he's lacking a little bit?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Kirk is structured and he wants to play on rhythm and timing, and A plus B equals C. And if A plus B doesn't equal C, then you get a significantly lesser version of him. He is not going to be the guy that goes above and beyond the X's and O's. Now, he still can operate and execute those X's and O's at a really efficient level. I mean, he was, people chuckled at it, but 3/4 of the way through the season, you would have thrown his name into an MVP conversation. However many names got thrown in there, that's up to the people, maybe a top 10. So, like, he's not going to be the person that you can sit there as a coach and go, we can kind of dial up anything here. Because if it's not there, Kirk is going to make something happen. It's harder to be his play caller. That's in some aspects, because he can't bail you out. He won't bail you out as a play caller, meaning if you make a call that stinks and they lock you up, he's not going to be the guy that goes, Coach, don't worry, I got this. Watch what I do. Now he's also a guy that you can trust as a play caller. That hey, I'm calling this play to do this, and Kirk will operate and execute in that capacity. So I kind of phrase it like this, man. There's some cats in the NFL right now at the quarterback position that they can go create their own shot in the basketball court. Patrick Mahomes creates his own shot. Lamar Jackson creates his own shot. Russell Wilson creates his own shot. Aaron Rodgers is the guy that's been doing that for a long time. Kirk is a guy that'll knock down your open jumper. He can score. If you're the coach that you draw up the open play and you get him on that ball screen or picking something like that, and you get him an open look, he will knock down his jumper. But he cannot go one-on-one isolation mode and create his own shot. And that's the difference where Kirk is and some of these other guys. You can win with both. There's just different ways to have to do it.
One of the flaws in his game, Dan, when I watch, is it seems that he doesn't feel pressure soon enough to avoid it, and then once he does feel it, he kind of panics and either runs into more pressure or even worse off, gets hit and then fumbles the ball. Is that something that you can coach a quarterback to do or teach him to do, to feel that, to have the pocket presence, or is that either something that you have or you don't?
I believe it's something that you have and then slowly kind of build, acquire throughout your youth and sports and, the different activities you go a part of. I don't think at 24, 28, 31, you're going to get that much better at that. Can you get incrementally, very, very small kind of steps forward better at it? Of course you can, like anything. I get your point and it's valid, but I think that one of the great things that all great athletes do, and mainly great, if you're great at anything, is you have to know yourself. And I'm sure Kirk is aware that that is not something that he does well. And so the alternative would be, or the devil's advocate from my angle would be, well, if Kirk's not good at moving in the pocket and it usually creates something bad, well, then it makes no sense for him to try and do it more often. Philip Rivers was a guy who was never great at it as well. He actually was a guy that wanted the pressure in his face because he just operated. That's where he was at his best. Or that's when he minimized what he did worse. And so I think that Kirk, certainly is going to take small steps forward. But at the end of the day, if he knows, listen, me getting out the pocket isn't good for anybody, then maybe he's committed to staying in there and trying to work his way through progression to get the ball out.
Dan, do you think that Tua falls in the first round on Thursday? And offshoot of that question, from what you've seen on tape, do you believe that he is ultimately going to be what we consider to be a franchise quarterback?
No and yes. Yes, I believe that Tua is going to be a franchise quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I, like many people, caveat that with, I've said this, Tua is going to get drafted. And where he gets drafted, I guess, is important. But what they do with Tua once they draft him is equally as important. No one thought Andrew Luck was going to become an undurable quarterback, but the Colts abused him. And so whatever team drafts him, what they do with him is just as important as where they draft him. Build your offensive line the right way. Make sure you have good players around him that give him the opportunity to get the ball out of his hands. Make sure he's got a really good play caller, right? If you have all those things, yes, he's going to be an absolute stud at that position. I don't think he falls. I just find it very convenient that 7 to 10 days before the draft comes around, all beginning of last week or so, Tua's name starts to plummet, and the Wonderlic score gets leaked, and all of a sudden Justin Herbert's skyrocketing up draft boards. And I maybe I'll be wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong at times. But I think that he will be the second quarterback off the board. I think worst case scenario, he goes 5 to Miami. And I can't run from what my eyes see on tape.
Do you see a surprise team that you think might take Tua? Because we've been talking about it, and I've said I don't think it's likely, but I do think it's a real possibility that Tua does slide the draft board, maybe even as far as to the Vikings at number 22, because after the Bengals, Dan, I see 3 teams that would be looking for a quarterback, or at least need a quarterback badly enough that they would use a first-round pick on it, and that's the Dolphins, the Chargers, and maybe the Raiders. Do you see a team outside of those 3 who you think might have Tua on their board and could surprise some people in using their first-round pick on him?
Yeah, sure. I mean, nothing. Being 12 years in the NFL and now kind of 2 years attached to the NFL and media, nothing shocks me or surprises me. I don't think there's any chance Tua gets to 22. You know, I think the reality is this: if Tua gets outside the top 10, there's everyone's phone's going to be on, getting called, because you can make the case that the New Orleans Saints could jump up and go get him. You can make the case that the Indianapolis Colts could try and jump up and get him. You can make the case that the Packers would. These teams that have their older veteran quarterbacks that are on the, hey, do we get the receiver that's going to help our older quarterback play well, or do we get the next 15 years? And so if Tua falls out of the top 10, I would imagine, there's going to be plenty of teams trying to jump up and go and take him.